All right, so on a more in-depth look on the engine failure, we still have the heads on. That's why the connecting rods are still in there. Valve covers are off, cams are still in. Timing, chain assembly all taken off. Basically, the bare minimum of what you need to do. Oil guy or oil seal there, remain. Oil pumps off, but the bare minimum you need to take off to get the crank out of this Coyote V8. This is the MMR oil pump. You can see it's got their logo on. This isn't anything to do with the failure, nor is this. It looks like right now we're thinking it's crank failure. These are the main bearings off the front. First one was the worst, and when we got close, you could actually pry the crank up and down a noticeable amount, which really shouldn't be a thing you can do at all.
For that first one.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah, it was absolutely grenading itself. I even followed Ford's spec on how to do the bearings, and we plastic gauged everything, and it all came within basically bang on. There wasn't any ones we had to even think was close to having to get a different size bearing. If you've went through the Ford's recommended bearing size, it gives you an upper and a lower, and it gives you a number on the crank and the block, and you match that up. And then I took that number and I measured my crank, and that number came up as the same as in that chart. So I was well within the spec. I don't think putting the wrong bearing size was the issue. What we're kind of leaning towards now is that this crank may be slightly bent, and because this thing only drove for, it was under 400 kilometers, so maybe 200 miles tops, maybe even close to 200 kilometers. Because I don't even think I put 2 tanks or even a full tank of gas in it before I had to take it off the road. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, because I drained gas out of that car. Mm-hmm. And, yeah. So, and for this failure, like this level of catastrophic failure to happen in such a short period of time, I'm thinking it might have to do with the bent crank, or something's gone wrong in the block.
Maybe that crank got slightly tweaked when it got hydrolocked.
Yeah.
Was the crank you said from the hydrolocked engine?
Yeah, this was out of...
checked out, though, the machine shop.
I did actually take it to a machine shop and said, hey, I have 2 cranks. One of my cranks upstairs is off a one that spun a rod bearing due to oil sludge everywhere. And then it needed to get machined down, then oversized bearings. But this one was out of a hydrolocked engine, and I was a little bit unsure if it would still be usable. And I went to the machine shop and said, hey, I have this other crank, and they said, oh, show it to us. And they're like, oh, this crank's beautiful. We'll check it out and make sure it's true, and you can use it. Not putting blame on the machine shop. This might have happened from when my ECU went on the fritz, because it got filled with water and it flooded 2 of the cylinders, and it did hydrolock just on the starter. I really kind of doubt that's the issue, but you never know.
It may have also had one cylinder firing with fuel at the same time that there was gasoline in the other cylinders.
Yeah, you know what?
Yeah.
It definitely could have almost pre-ignited type level of firing one when it's coming up.
Yeah.
And it's shooting fuel in there, and it already had air. There's a lot of possibilities. End of the day, this is probably fucked now, because it's got a sizable groove in there, and I don't necessarily trust it anymore.
It has nuked the bearings, yeah.
Yeah, so...
Unless the block is bent, which is unlikely. Really unlikely.
I even did the... on the factory rebuild spec sheet, it tells you that you need a certain amount of rotational torque when you just have the crank in.
Yeah, right.
And you use a deflection torque or torque wrench. And I was bang on the money again. And... this was definitely the first rebuild, and we're having a catastrophic failure, so my confidence is at an all-time low, but...
but everything was done right.
I took a spin on the old thinking chair, and we're going to reevaluate where we can get a crank or a block or a short block. If anyone has information on a cheap source to get Coyote parts in Canada, or even in the States, because, I got a passport now. Because I just didn't have mine renewed for a long time. So we can go down to Bellingham or whatever. Definitely shoot a comment down below. But, yeah, here is utter crank failure. Thrust washer seemed fine. But Yeah, rest. No good. Even went with the money on the MMR oil pump, the ARP fasteners, the Eagle rods, hoping that all these would make it easier.
Nice
And
looking parts.
yeah,
Those Eagle rods are basically scrap metal trash now.
yeah. If anyone needs any trash metal parts, shoot a comment down below as well.
We can mail you some scrap connecting rods.
Yeah, maybe one of these is good. I doubt it, but you never know. So this block is definitely going to require hours and hours and hours of cleaning and spraying solvents and air through all the oil galleries. So
Yeah, the oil galleries are
if
definitely...
anyone's looking for something to do and in the Vancouver area, you're more than welcome to
get some
to help me.
cleaners, eh?
Yeah. Yeah. This is a great job for an intern.
Mm-hmm.